And good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack, or Steelers Six Pack with Tony. Now, I guess that's the name of the show. I forgot the name change. And I'm your host, Tony Defio, as always. So thank you for joining me on this lovely Friday night in the Pittsburgh area so far. But perhaps Jerry Cherry Band's music in the intro is appropriate because the Steelers' Friday night lights practice at Latrobe, PA, St. Vincent College, was canceled because of inclement weather. In other words, it was raining really, really, really hard, so they had to cancel the practice. So there will not be a Friday night lights practice this year, and it's always something that the fans look forward to. It's always a highly attended event, but get them next year, I suppose. What can you do? Player safety, fan safety comes first, and certainly you don't want players practicing in that kind of weather, and I'm sure you don't want to be sitting in that kind of weather to watch a practice. So better safe than sorry, and go get them again on Saturday during the day, I guess, for a regular old practice at Latrobe at St. Vincent College. So that's the most immediate news. And before I continue, I would like to ask you to please like and subscribe to our Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel. We bring you live shows each and every day and night, including this show. We have The Hangover. We had the Touchdown Under show with Matty Pepperell and Mark Davison earlier on Friday at 5 o'clock. You can catch that show live every Friday at 5. We have the We Run the North with Kevin Tate and his guests every Sunday. We have Bad Language with Brian Anthony Davis on Sundays. We have the Q&A on Sundays. Wow, lots of shows on Sundays. We also have, did I mention The Hangover? We have that with Brian Anthony Davis and Shannon White and yours truly every Monday at 5. Tuesday, we have the Scobro Show with Dave and his brother Rich. Wednesday, we have the curtain call in the off season. In the regular season, it'll be Know Your Enemy, which I believe is coming up this week. That's the name change, and that's with Jeffrey Benedict and Shannon. Thursday, we have the Steelers preview with Jeff Hartman, Dave Schofield, and Brian Anthony Davis. I think it's all the live shows. If I missed any, you'll find them. Our channel is growing each and every week. And, of course, you can catch all those shows live also on Facebook. And you can catch all those shows after the fact on any audio platform of your choosing. Anywhere you can find audio podcasts, you can find the Behind the Steel Curtain channel. And we also have audio-only shows that we bring you each and every week, including the Steelers Fix with Andrew Wilbar and Jeremy Betts, Let's Ride, the very popular show with Jeff Hartman, the Stat Geek with Dave Schofield, From the Cutting Room Floor with Jeffrey Benedict, The War Room with Matty Pepperell. We have so many of those shows for you too. And again, you can catch those shows on any audio platform of your choosing. And please check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website. We bring you news, commentary, film breakdown. It's your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. Every time there's a trade, an injury, a transaction, a contract extension, Behind the Steel Curtain will have that for you. So please check that out each and every day, multiple times each and every day, because they're always adding content for you. And here we are basically halfway through training camp, and the news is coming at you hot and heavy. So check that out each and every day. And let's check out the live chat where we have a good crew with us tonight. We have Mike Moore. Perhaps that's the former heavyweight champion of the world from Pittsburgh, Monessen, PA. I don't know, but he's joining us from Facebook, and he's the first one in, which is a rarity. It's usually Steeler Chick 46 or Daredevil, something like that. But now we have an upset. We have a camp underdog coming in at number one in the live chat, and that's Mike Moore. So welcome, Mike. Darkstorm 1 is with us. Brian Brown, always with us every show. Sean Manahan, another mainstay. Shirley Lazor is with us tonight from Facebook. Kyle Kreis. Wow. Kyle Kreis is one of our stars from What You's Talking About. I forgot the name. I forgot What You's Talking About. That's another audio only show that Kyle does, and it's a great show. It's very funny. very informative. Please check that out. And he asked me, when am I doing a 24-hour live show? I don't know. I'll think about that. I'll have to get somebody to cover maybe 23 hours of my shift, maybe 22 hours of it, and then I'll sign on for that. But I'll let you know. Of course, Steel Chick 46 is with us. Rhonda Bell. We have a Gerald Buckhalter. Wow. Miranda Vargas. What a crew we have tonight. And of course, Jared Devil's joining us. So welcome everybody in the live chat. And again, Kyle, I'll get back to you on that 24-hour live chat. But I'm sure it's in the works. I mean, the news never stops 24/7, 365. The off season came and went and didn't even feel like an off season. And now here we are in the throes of training camp. And before I get into the topics, let's do our 6-pack of questions. I made them up on the spot. So you can answer them throughout the show as I'm talking, and we'll revisit them at the end of the show. Question number 1. Diontae Johnson, as the title suggests, signed a 2-year contract extension through the 2024 season worth $36.71 million, $27 million guaranteed. In total, the contract will pay him over $39 million through 2024. How do you feel about that contract? Number 2, we're through essentially 2 weeks of training camp at Latrobe. Are you yet worried about the quarterback play? Because from what we're hearing, hasn't been that great. Mitch Trubisky, the presumed starter for week 1, has been struggling. So are you worried about that at all? That's question number 2. Question number 3, Chris Boswell signed a contract extension on Monday. Do you consider him to be the best kicker in Steeler history? Question number 4, have you been to Latrobe yet this summer? Have you been to St. Vincent College, I should say, this summer for a training camp? And if so, what was your biggest takeaway from your visit to training camp? Question number 5, the depth chart, the first official Steelers depth, I can't say that word, depth chart was released on Friday. Were you surprised by anything that you saw? And finally, question number 6, the Steelers open up their preseason schedule next Saturday night at Acrisure Stadium. Will you be in attendance? So those are the 6 questions. Excuse me while I blow out the dust off of my keyboard. All right, let's get into tonight's show. And let's start with the title topic, and that is the Johnson contract extension. As I said, it's $36.71 million extension over 2 years through 2024 with $27 million guaranteed. It'll an annual average of $18 million. The rumor all throughout the summer and the spring was that Johnson wanted a contract that would pay him an annual salary of $20 million. So, and he wanted a long-term deal, presumably 4 or 5 years. But instead, he gets just under $20 million, and he gets a 2-year extension. So, in my opinion, it's kind of like the best of both worlds for both sides. Johnson doesn't necessarily get the $20 million a year that he was looking for, but he does get $27 million guaranteed, and it is a shorter contract. So, he just turned 26 on July 5th. So the next time he's a free agent will be in the spring of 2025. If my math is correct, that means he'll be just shy of his 29th birthday. So he'll be still in his prime, presumably, unless he's, ravaged by injuries by then. And if he continues to progress as a player and continues to get better and shows us more than he's already shown the Steelers over his first 3 years with a compromised offense, maybe he'll be in line for that huge payday after all. Maybe in Pittsburgh, maybe somewhere else, But in the meantime, he made sure he got paid. just in case, he made sure he got paid. Maybe the offense just continues to perform average or below average over the next 3 years, and Johnson's his free agent, the market for him suffers because of that. We saw what happened with Juju Smith-Schuster. It was a kind of a different circumstance after the 2020 season. The salary cap had been reduced dramatically because of the pandemic. It wiped out so much of the NFL's revenue in 2020 that it reduced the salary cap. And Smith-Schuster, he suffered because of it. He really couldn't find the deal he was looking for. He had to come back on a 1-year deal in 2021. He wound up getting hurt. He missed all but 5 regular season games. He came back for the playoffs, and then he wound up signing another below market deal in Kansas City. So, in a year like this year, would Smith-Schuster have gotten the deal he was looking for, provided he wasn't coming off an injury, provided he wasn't coming off an injury? We'll never know. But now Johnson doesn't have to really worry about anything like that in 3 years, because he's already guaranteed at least $27 million by then. So if something happens like that, well, at least he'll have made a good bit of money. So I think it's a good deal for him. And I also think it's a good deal for the Steelers because regardless of what anybody thinks of Johnson's talents, and I know the opinions vary from he's pretty good to he's absolutely horrible. As we talked about on Monday, there's no nuance, there's no middle ground when it comes to opinions on athletes today. It's either you're great or you suck. There's nowhere in between. But there's no question that Johnson's numbers over his first 3 years, 254 catches for 2,700 plus yards, 20 touchdowns. Those are the numbers of a second tier number 1 receiver. And what the Steelers paid him is in line with what you would expect a second tier number 1 receiver to make. The deal made him the 17th highest paid receiver in the NFL. 5 years ago, when Antonio Brown was the best receiver on the planet, maybe the best football player on the planet, when they gave him a new contract, they made him the highest paid receiver in the NFL. I guess the highest paid ever up to that point. And the deal averaged $17 million a year. Here we are 5 years later, and the top guys like Tyreek Hill and DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams, those receivers are making $30 million or just under $30 million a year. So that's how much the receiver market has skyrocketed in terms of salary in the half a decade. So when people say that Johnson wasn't worth that kind of money, well, the market says that he is worth that kind of money. So, the Steelers have developed this reputation, and rightfully so, because it's a real reputation. There's a reason for it, I should say, of not signing receivers past their rookie contracts. Other than Hines Ward and Antonio Brown, arguably the two best receivers in franchise history. In Brown's case, one of the best receivers in NFL history. You can't argue that. The stretch he had was record breaking. So he's up there with the all-time greats as far as his era. So they're the only 2 receivers that they really signed beyond their rookie deals. Yeah, Juju last year, but that was a kind of a fluky thing. Again, there wasn't a market for him, and they just brought him back on a really team-friendly 1-year deal. So they have this reputation of not signing receivers other than all-time greats to second contracts. Do they want that reputation moving forward? Because there's no question that regardless of what they think and their philosophy, pretty good receivers are getting paid pretty good money now. So I think eventually they had to bend a little bit and conform to the league norms now and start paying decent receivers good money and guaranteeing them a lot of money. And that's what they did with Johnson. But they did it on a short-term deal. So in a few years, if the bubble bursts for the receiver position, which a lot of people think, that a lot of experts, I was listening to Matt Williamson the other day, a former scout, NFL expert. I really value his opinion. And he's of the opinion that the influx of young receiver talent coming into the NFL that we've seen over the last 4, 5, 6 years, it's not going to stop anytime soon. So that might create a supply and demand thing where it favors the teams and not the player. And that bubble might burst for receivers, and they might not be commanding, or they might not be able to command 25, 30 million a year, the top guys, and the tier below them might not be able to command 18 to 20 million a year. So that might burst. So if it does, then they'll be out from under Johnson's contract after the 2024 season. But if it doesn't burst and it keeps accelerating, it keeps increasing each and every year, who knows where it's going to stop. Well, at least this shows that they're willing to pay pretty good receivers decent money, as close to a fair wage for their value as they can. So I think it shows a change of philosophy with how they view receivers, because the smart money, in my opinion, if I were betting on this, was that they were just going to let Johnson play out his rookie contract and allow him to go to free agency. As I said on Monday on the Hangover, I thought they had an abundant mindset when it came to receivers. They've been so good at drafting those guys and developing them over the last decade plus that I figured they would just say, look, we have Pickens now, we have Chase Claypool, there's next year's draft. There's probably going to be some young, talented receivers we can find. Maybe Calvin Austin. I'm assuming he's going to stick around. Maybe he blossoms into something as a little tiny slot receiver and punt returner or whatever. So we're just going to let you go. We're going to continue to pay receivers on their rookie deals and kind of let them walk after that, unless they really turn into Antonio Brown or Hines Ward. But they didn't do that this time. They kept Johnson around. They kept him around for another 3 years or another 2 years beyond the final year of his rookie deal. And to me, that signals a shift in philosophy for them. So, but it's not a huge investment in terms of years, and of course they didn't, give him the 20+ million that he was reportedly looking for. So to me, it's a good deal for both sides. They kind of both hedged their bets. Johnson, thanks to the $27 million in guaranteed money. The Steelers, thanks to only extending him 2 years beyond 2022. So I think it was a good deal for both sides. It shows that they're willing to pay a good receiver, not a Hall of Fame receiver, a good receiver, fair market value. So to me, this builds up goodwill with Johnson and perhaps Claypool, Pickens, and future receivers. And they won't be labeled an organization that refuses to pay receivers. And I don't think they want to be labeled that, because it could come back to haunt them. If somebody like maybe Pickens, for example, in a couple of years, say he's just really just lighting up the league, he decides, hey, these guys aren't going to pay me. They're when it's my time in 2 more years, they're not going to pay me the money I want. So I'm just going to hold out right now, which I'm not even sure it's legal under new CB. I don't know how that works. I don't know how rookie contracts work, but that could possibly happen. So now this signals to a lot of people that, hey, look, if you produce for us, we'll find a way to work with you. We'll find a way to give you a really good contract. So I'm glad that they got it done. It ends that ongoing drama with the hold in and the bad feelings building up with the fan base and maybe even the media against Johnson. After all, he is a receiver. We know how Steeler fans seem to have a love-hate relationship with receivers, and that's often on the receivers. That's often the receivers' fault for things like, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant. But other times it's maybe unfair in the case of Juju and even Diontae Johnson recently. So I'm glad they got it done and they can move forward. And I read KT Smith's article right before I came on the air about his visit to training camp on Thursday, and he listed 15 different observations, and one of them was that Johnson looked fantastic. His first day back was Thursday after signing the deal, and he looked like the best receiver out there. So that was good to hear. So I think Johnson, again, people might not think he's a number one receiver, but they just paid him like he is, and I think he's their most polished, and he's their best all-around receiver. He's their best route runner. As of right now, he gets open better than anybody on the roster. We'll see with Pickens. We'll see what he brings to the table once these games start next week, and we get to see him actually play. But right now, Diontae Johnson is the most complete receiver they have, and he's done what he's done over 3 years in an offense that was below average to absolutely downright awful. So maybe there's even more room for him to grow as a receiver in this league, provided the line gets better, the play calling, the offensive play calling gets better, and the quarterback play gets better, starting maybe this year, or hopefully in the very near future. So that's topic number one. And actually, topic number one relates to topic number two, and that involves something I wrote on Friday, and that was about TJ Watt's hold-in and contract negotiations last year. And a popular refrain when trying to compare Johnson's hold-in to Watt's hold-in was that it was different. Each case was different. Everybody knew Watt was gonna get his money. It was just a matter of time. It was a slam dunk. It was a foregone conclusion that TJ Watt was going to get paid. But that's only if you have a poor memory and you can't think back to even a summer ago and what was going on in the climate and everything surrounding these contract negotiations between Watt and the Steelers. I mean, it started off pretty rocky to begin with. The offseason of 2021, the rumor surfaced that Watt skipped out on his exit interviews with Tomlin, Colbert, maybe Art II, whoever he denied it. But Mark Madden, the local shock jock sports radio guy, he's the one who said it. And you can say what you want about Mark Madden, but when it comes to stuff like this inside info, he doesn't throw it out there unless there's a little bit of smoke behind it, meaning he got it from a source within the organization or a source close to the organization, such as a beat reporter, somebody who has good contacts within the organization. So there's probably some truth to it, maybe that we'll never know. But I don't think Madden would have said this if there at least wasn't a shred of truth to it, and that Watt was upset because of his contract situation. So there was that, and then of course there was the crossroads that the organization found itself at, because there was no question that Watt was going to seek a deal that would guarantee him way more money than the organization had ever guaranteed a veteran player, after, with any contract that they ever signed anybody to, including Ben Roethlisberger. We're talking $80 to $100 million. That was the price that it was going to take to keep TJ Watt. $80 to $100 million in guaranteed money, not just the amount of the contract, the actual guaranteed money in the contract. And the debate lasted all off season. And fans were, people now they think, oh, of course they were going to pay him that amount of money, but they had never done that before. And the rhetorical question was, if they don't pay Watt, if they don't break their philosophy and pay Watt that kind of money, who would they pay that kind of money to? So if they weren't going to do it for TJ Watt, they probably weren't going to do it for anybody. So the question was, would they set a precedent and guarantee this much money to TJ Watt? And if it was a slam dunk, it would have happened right away. But it didn't happen right away. It dragged on and on and on all throughout the summer, all throughout training camp. Watt did not participate in team drills all throughout training camp. Again, he held in like Johnson did for a time this year. And it really went down to the 11th hour. And it didn't get done until 3 days before the start of the season. And I have a nice little tidbit that a friend of mine sent me today. And this is from Jim Wexell, who, speaking of Steelers insiders, this guy's been an insider for them for years. He's covered the team. He has credentials. And he wouldn't say this if there wasn't some truth to it, or if he wasn't told this by somebody closely related to the organization. And this was about TJ Watt's contract negotiations last year. He says Watt was so frustrated that he was clearing out his locker, and Roethlisberger had to make a frantic phone call to warn the front office, and then after that, Watt got extended. Now, the version we were told as fans in the media was that Watt decided to go into Art II's office one day and say, look, boss, forget about what my agent's telling you. Let's get a deal done. All right, I'll take that deal. I'm going to go work out. That's like the John Wayne version. I'm going to make this sacrifice and settle for $80 million a year guaranteed, or $80 million guaranteed over the length of the contract, because I'm a team player. And, that got everybody excited and made them love TJ Watt even more. But if we're to believe that thing from Wexell, it wasn't as nice and easy in kumbaya as they're making it out to be. So it seemed like it was a pretty contentious contract negotiation. The fans were really worried about it. The players went public. Roethlisberger, Cam Hayward, they went public and pleaded with their bosses to get it done. This was not a foregone conclusion. This was not a guarantee. There were no guarantees that the Steelers were going to go away from their philosophy and guarantee TJ Watt that kind of money. So, this very easily could have went a different way for them and for him. Had they not gotten the deal done by the start of the season, in all likelihood, the contract talks would have stopped, because they have speaking of philosophies, they have a philosophy of not negotiating contracts once the season starts. So they were literally days away from the season starting. So it very easily could have been a situation where they had to abruptly stop contract talks and put everything on hold until after the season, and then pick things up from there and probably franchise tag him, which would have likely created more hard feelings than who knows. Maybe Watt doesn't sign the tag. Maybe he decides to hold out or skip camp like Le'Veon Bell did. And then who knows what happens. Maybe they're forced to make a decision, trade his rights away to somebody else. And to me, that would have signaled to the rest of the NFL and their own players, hey, look, we're never going to conform to to the growing trend of paying these guys so much guaranteed money. So, people act like the Watt and Johnson situations were totally different. And I think they're basing their opinions on the fact that, they love TJ Watt. And again, the love for receivers by Steeler fans has always been a bit iffy. It's always been love-hate, and it seems like a lot more hate lately than love. So I think that's what they're basing that on. Well, Watt deserved his money. He deserved the hold in. Johnson he's a receiver. Screw him. He should be in there practicing. But really, they're more alike than you think. And when you looking at it now, after Johnson, his deal was finalized on Thursday, there was a lot more drama surrounding Watt's situation than there ever was with Johnson. So people act like they were different situations, but they're really not. They're more alike than you think. So, in any event, I'm certainly glad that they have both T.J. Watt and Diontae Johnson, because I think it makes them a better team. And speaking of Johnson, maybe his presence now will help with my third topic, and that's the play of the quarterback position through 2 weeks. Brooke Pryor of ESPN, she's the Steeler. She covers the Steelers for ESPN. She was quoted on Friday as saying that the quarterback play has overall been underwhelming so far, with Mason Rudolph looking the best. And she was essentially saying that by default. I mean, he looks pretty good, but that's simply because he's been here the longest. He knows the offense the best, and again, and he's going up against number 2s and number 3 defense, and not the top defense. Mr. Trubisky has been getting the vast majority of first-team reps, and he's reportedly looked awful. Last I checked, he was like 0 for his last 17 in practice, and that's not good. One of the reporters said he was so frustrated, I guess it was yesterday, he slammed his helmet after a play or coming off the field or whatever. So things have been iffy in that department when it comes to the quarterback play through 2 weeks. And, as Jeffrey Benedict and I talked about on Sunday on the Q&A, perhaps some of that, when it comes to Trubisky, has to do with the fact that he's going up against a very good number 1, defense, or very good defense. It's starters, and maybe that's true, but sooner or later, it's like Jim Leland used to say about his hitters when they were in slumps. Overall, he would say, "Well, yeah, we're going up against tough pitching, but gosh darn it, we have good hitters, and every now and then those good hitters have to beat those tough pitchers, and every now and then Mr. Trubisky is going to have to shine against a really good defense. Is he capable of doing that at all, or even a pretty good defense? Judging by these first 2 weeks, he looks like the same old Mr. Trubisky we watched for 4 years in Chicago. Maybe not even that good, So I don't know what to make of that. But it is a bit concerning. But as I tried to warn everybody about for the last few years, when they were wanting to move on from Ben Roethlisberger, meaning the fans, and start anew, well, careful what you wish for, because when it finally does happen, and there was no question, it was time for it to happen. Last year, it was time for Big Ben to retire. But when it finally does happen, don't expect it to be a smooth transition into the next guy. It's probably going to be a pretty bumpy road, more than likely. The odds, history tells us that the odds were pretty high or low or whatever, long, that they were going to find a really good quarterback so soon after a legend like Roethlisberger retires. And here we are. Again, it's only 2 weeks in the training camp, but it feels a lot like the 80s in the 90s. Who's going to be the starter? And if he does win the job, is he going to be any good at all? Is there anything to be excited about when it comes to this guy? And we saw that, a lot of that for all throughout the 80s, into the 90s, sometimes into the early 2000s. It was always a huge question mark as to who the starting quarterback was. And I said this all offseason. What you wanted to see was somebody take the ball and just blow by the other 2 or the other 3, whoever made up the quarterback competition. You wanted to see somebody take the bull by the horns and be the clear-cut, best-looking quarterback in training camp. And so far, Mason Rudolph looks like the best quarterback, but not by a whole lot. What I want to see, people keep talking about Mason Rudolph and how good he's looked, and that's kind of exciting because maybe he has turned a corner. But I want to see him go up against the starters on defense. Let's see how he does against them. The one, I guess, maybe thing to possibly be encouraged about when it comes to the performance of the offense up until now, speaking of starters, is the fact that so many guys have been, dinged up. Chase Claypool, Diontae Johnson, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth has missed a lot of time due to injury. And, of course, Johnson was out for the longest time with his contract hold in. So maybe things will change if they get their top skill position players back in there all at the same time. Claypool, Johnson, Pickens, Freiermuth, Harris. Maybe things will change. Maybe that's been part of the problem up until now. But if Trubisky continues to struggle as the number one starter, or as the starter, I should say, then I think Mike Tomlin owes it to his teammates, to his team, his players, to try somebody else as the top quarterback, whether it be Mason Rudolph, who again has reportedly looked the most impressive in camp, or Kenny Pickett, who, if you read KT Smith's article, he looked really good yesterday on Thursday when he saw him at training camp. So maybe he's turning a corner. Like I talked about last week, nobody should be shocked that he's looked lost or inconsistent up to this point. I mean, it's his second, it's his first ever training camp, and I don't know too many quarterbacks that have come in and looked comfortable right away. It's the toughest position to master in all of team sports. So for anybody to have expected Kenny Pickett to come in and look great right away, that was probably misguided thinking or hope. But if he continues to improve, if he continues to make progress from one week to the next, maybe, who knows, maybe you split time with him and Trubisky at number one, or you split time with him, or you give all three guys shots with the number ones just to see what they do. Because I mean, Mitch Trubisky, really, even though he has a track record in the NFL, he's not Johnny Unitas. He's not Tom Brady, or he's not somebody like that he deserves the benefit of the doubt. If he's not giving you what you want, then you have to maybe try somebody else. So those are basically my three topics, and I will open things up to questions and comments. Let's see what we have. Let's see if anybody answered any of the six-pack questions that I threw out there at the start of the show. And so far, let's see, new comments. Let's see what we have down here. Here's one from Mark Malone. Maybe it's the Mark Malone. Speaking of the 80s and the quarterback carousel, remember the fan that drove his station wagon through Three River Stadium and was kicking imaginary field goals on the field when the cops showed up? He told them he did it because he was tired of my passing. That's pretty funny. I remember that. Now you bring that up, Mark Malone. I remember that. Yeah, you weren't a fan favorite by a long shot. I remember that. I kind of defended you back then, but looking back on it, probably wasn't a good idea to defend you because your play was shoddy. It started off pretty good. I mean, when you had John Stallworth and vintage Louis Lips, you were pretty good. But those Lips, Louis kind of had a bad couple of years there at the end of your career in Pittsburgh, and of course John Stallworth retired after '87. So and of course you were gone after '87. But I remember that. I remember you were one of the first quarterbacks to try to replace Terry Bradshaw, and you were really that first guy that they ganged up on after Terry Bradshaw. People didn't like Cliff Stout. They weren't that crazy about, David Woodley and some of those guys in the early days, but you were their number one whipping boy, so to speak. You were the number one guy that they hated. You were their Mason Rudolph. You were their Landry Jones. You were their Cordell Stewart. You were the first one. So I remember that. Those were memorable times, and we could have more of that coming up if somebody doesn't, step up and prove that he's the guy at the most important position on the team. Here's one from Christopher 11, and he asked Tony, when do you predict the Steelers will make a decision on the starting quarterback after preseason game 2 or 3? Well, at this point, with things being so murky and with Mitch Trubisky struggling so much, I don't anticipate them making a decision until after the 3rd preseason game. I think right now, going into camp, they wanted Trubisky to be the starter. They wanted to give Pickett a redshirt year. They wanted Mason to be the backup. That seems to be how what they were going for. But now with Trubisky struggling so much, they might have to alter their plans, and it might really turn into a competition where even Mason Rudolph is in the running. And I think a lot's going to be determined by these preseason games. So we'll see what happens when, because obviously Trubisky's not going to be held out of any preseason game. He's not been. And at this point, he shouldn't be. He needs to be in there. They all need to be in there. Like I wrote about a few weeks ago, they all need to play extensively in the preseason to give the coaches more of an idea of, and in the media and the fans to get an idea of what these guys can do, because you can only take so much from what you hear from training camp. You have to see it for yourself sometimes just to see what these guys look like. So I think they all need to play. And I think at this rate, we're not going to know who the starter is until after the 3rd preseason game against the Lions, whoever they play. All right. This one is George Teston. He says, I think Woodley threw 6 pick six in 2 years, and he didn't even play all the games. Well, Mark Malone, if people may not remember this, Mark Malone came in. He became the full-time starter down the stretch in 1984, and he looked really, really good. And of course, he helped lead them to the AFC Championship game. So the things look pretty bright for him after 84. He was a number 1 pick in 1980, so maybe it was just a matter of him finally getting a real chance and taking advantage of it. But of course, he never quite took it to the next level, and he was gone after 87. And this one is from the CUDA 70. The signing may be a bad thing for this team. It may turn into a every year thing. I assume you mean the hold in. If that's what you mean, the CUDA, well, I brought that up on Monday on the Hangover. I mean, once you let one player hold in during a negotiation, what's to prevent future players from doing that? And what can you tell them? Sorry, these guys are just we like them more than you, so they get to do that, but you don't. Like, you can't say that. So once you set that precedent, once you let the toothpaste out of the tube, so to speak, when it comes to these hold-ins, how do you nip it in the bud? How do you do it? I mean, unless you bring the entire team together one day and say, look, no more hold-ins. If you do it again, and then maybe this is where Omar Khan has to come in and put his foot down as the new sheriff in town, as the new GM. No more hold-ins. Any future hold-in will result in heavy fines and sanctions and suspensions, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what you do at this point. And this one is from State of the Steelers, and he says, Mason looks good in camp, but his style of play has a narrow margin of error. He isn't pushing the ball down the field, so if there's a drop or a penalty, where is he in 3rd and long? Won't end well. Well, I don't know. I haven't been to camp yet. I'm planning on going next Wednesday. I haven't seen him up close and personal, so I don't know if that's changed at all at camp. But, like I said, I think a lot of fans, and I'm not saying you, State of the Steelers, but a lot of fans just are totally closed-minded to the possibility that maybe Rudolph can improve his game, that he can get better. And that's what's so fascinating about the quarterback position. You see him on every play, and And I get it. You see the quarterback more than any other position. So even one season might be enough for you to go, well, that's it. I've seen enough. He can't get any better. But, what was the knock on Ben all those years? That he didn't put in the preparation necessary to maybe be the very best. And he relied on his natural God-given gifts. He didn't watch enough film. He didn't prepare his body the right way. And if he would have just done that, he might have been the best ever. That's what people always said about Ben. Well, maybe somebody like Mason Rudolph can make up for that, for his for not having the same level of skill as Ben by preparation, by film study. Who knows? There's something to be said for that. Obviously, fans believe in it. So coaches believe in it. The media believes in it. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe somebody like Mason Rudolph can make up the difference between, Ben's God-given ability and less than ideal preparation and Rudolph's less than ideal skill set, so maybe they could, who knows? I saw something about Steeler Chick 46. Any news on Cam Sutton's injury? Other than he suffered a knee injury, I haven't heard anything new. I mean, he was listed as a starter on the depth chart on Friday. It didn't sound like it was anything serious. I think we would have heard if it was more serious than just a, these things happen all the time in training camp. These guys get injured and they miss time. It's live hitting, so you're liable to see some guys get injured. But I think if it was anything like an ACL or an MCL or anything really serious, we would have known about it by now. So I haven't heard anything new. All right. Here's one from Champ Life Boxing. That's a new name. Welcome from YouTube. I want to pick it for my Giants. He's got good legs and awareness. He should start week 1. Well, we'll see what happens. I know a lot of fans would celebrate that. I think it'd be exciting. The rookie quarterback. I was always an advocate for that. For years, I said what they should do, draft the guy after Ben retires, draft the guy in the first round. If there's somebody there that warrants such a selection, and throw him in right away and let him grow and let him learn on the job. But after they signed Mitch Trubisky in March, I think they felt obligated for him to start. But then maybe they didn't realize, or they didn't anticipate having their pick of the litter at quarterback once the draft came around. So who knows what they're thinking. But again, at the end of the day, you just want the best guy to win the job and the most effective guy. So that has yet to be determined. This is one from Bobby Brister. Wow, Mark Malone and Bobby Brister. If you guys are both the real deal, this is going to be the greatest night of my life. I'm just telling you that. All right. And Bobby Brister says, I think Rudolph can be the guy. We've got a way better team than we did in the late 80s. Well, you might be onto something. That those 80s teams, those mid to late 80s teams, they were lacking in talent. So we'll see. They certainly have a high-paid defense. They have the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. The 80s team didn't, although it did have Rod Woodson, which, it's like having the NFL Defensive Player of the Year every year. That's how good he was. But Christopher 11 says, unfortunately, Mason hasn't been the same since after the big hit. Yeah, but he also hasn't played all that much after the big hit. You're talking about the shot by Earl Thomas early in his in the 2019 season. He hasn't played a lot either. People have to remember he's only appeared in 17 games in over 4 years. All right. Here's perhaps an update about Cam Sutton from State of the Steelers. Sutton came back after the collision with Anthony McFarland that caused the injury. He was running, so I don't think it's too serious. Yeah, it's kind of what I assumed based on what little I heard about the injury. Anything serious, you would know right away, I think. These insiders are on the ball when it comes to that kind of stuff. So there would have been rumors had there been a serious injury with Cam Sutton. So that's good info, State of the Steelers. Thank you. All right. And this is one from, and this is actually Jerry Cherry Band, maybe David Willey will show. And as George Teston pointed out, he actually, David Willey passed away several years ago. I think he had liver disease. He had some post-career problems, and he passed away. So yeah, David Willey, but he was somebody that people were high on when Pittsburgh acquired him in the trade early in the 84 offseason, February of 1984, and they gave him a pretty decent contract. And this is before Terry Bradshaw even retired. I think they had anticipated that Bradshaw would retire. Of course, Dan Marino had established himself in 1983 with the Dolphins in his rookie year. So there was no turning back there. So Woodley, who had just started in the Super Bowl a couple years earlier, was expendable. And he came here. And, he was the fan favorite for a little bit. He actually never really experienced the true wrath of Steeler fans because he wasn't around long as far as his time here. I think he was gone by 86. So yeah, he didn't really, Mark Malone kind of took the job and kept it from Woodley. So Woodley never got to experience true Steeler fan wrath that they show for quarterbacks. Even Terry Bradshaw got to experience that. God bless him. Ben Roethlisberger never really did, other than, the occasional meltdown after a poor pass. All right. Let's see what else we have on the agenda before I call it a night. All right. I don't think I see any more questions, but it was a fun, productive show. And I'll talk to you guys on Monday on The Hangover with Brian and Shannon. And we only have one more week to go before the preseason is here. So stay tuned to Behind the Steel Curtain, the website. Keep checking in with the podcast. Keep checking in with everything. And we're going to keep bringing you great content. Just think, a week from tomorrow, there will be football to talk about. Not real football, but more real than we've seen since January. And that's exciting. So until I talk to you again, you guys have a great weekend. And as always, go Steelers. Take care, everyone. And let's see if I get this music. I got to get this music in there. So Jerry Cherry doesn't get mad at me. So you guys all take care and have a good weekend. Go Steelers.